Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. My name is Kira Hill, owner of wine education company Vinoculture, and I'm here to talk to you today about biodynamic wines. So it's one of those phrases that definitely gets thrown out and everyone just kind of nods along like, oh yeah, that's like organic, right? Or something and natural, but we don't really understand what it means, why it's important, or if it makes a difference in the wine at all. So first, let's distinguish what organic wines mean, natural wine means, and biodynamic wines. So organic wines means that there are limitations on any chemicals used in the vineyards and in the winemaking practice themselves in the winery. So certain chemicals aren't allowed at all, certain chemicals are allowed, but only up to a certain point. And that is a government certified program. So USDA Organic is the sticker you'll see on anything that's certified organic, and that's through the government. Different governments have different certification levels and different intensity in which that they require their wines to uphold to. So that's organic. You can be organic practicing and not certified, which means you're doing all the things, you're just not paying for the really expensive certification. You can be organically growing your grapes, but not necessarily making your wine organic. Or you can be organically making your wine, but the grapes themselves don't necessarily fit in that organic mold. So all different levels, but that's organic. So it's just limits on the chemicals used in the winemaking practice and the vineyards themselves. Natural is a little bit more confusing because there is no certification for natural wines. There's no legal definition. Many people call their wines natural wines that aren't necessarily natural, which makes it even more confusing. It's supposed to mean uninterventionalist in terms of the winemaking practices and the vineyard growing, but again, that's talking about chemicals, not uninterventionalist in terms of pruning. We're still pruning, we're still involved in the vines, with the vines on a regular basis, intervening in the vineyards, but not necessarily with chemicals. So if you want to learn more about that, there's this great book right here, Natural Wines for the People by Alice Faring. She's amazing. She literally wrote the book on natural wines if you want to learn more about that, because it is a little bit confusing. Now, organic and natural are a little bit different than biodynamic because those are methodologies. It's just a practice that you are agreeing to do to protect the vines in the vineyards and to make the wine. But it's a practice, it's a methodology. Biodynamic is totally different. It's not a methodology, it's a philosophy. It's almost like a lifestyle. It goes a lot deeper, almost towards the spiritual realm, but it takes all of those principles of making wine as naturally as possible and organically as possible, and it takes that and like brings the level in which you hold yourself accountable to the nth degree higher. So biodynamics is all about creating the best possible ecosystem in the vineyards themselves so that the vines are the healthiest possible. Healthier vines are going to produce better grapes are going to produce better wines. So in the vineyards, they are talking about the whole ecosystem, including other wildlife, flora and fauna, animals and plants. So there's a lot of biodiversity programs in biodynamic vineyards where they're trying to increase the amount and the breadth of which other animals coexist in these vineyards, and other plants as well. So biodynamic wineries will often have lots of different plants, flowers, vegetables, trees, anything growing throughout the land to make sure that the soil is not being robbed of all of its nutrients, that it's being healthily stewarded with all of those things. So no chemical fertilizers, definitely not any chemical fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, anything. And the reason this is because the more you spray those chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides in the vineyards, the more sterile the soil becomes. Sterile soil is not good for vines. So vines themselves, the roots obviously dig down deep. The roots have these tiny little root hairs. Attached to the root hairs are microbes, and those microbes feed off of the carbohydrates that are leached from the roots as the vine is sucking up nutrients and water and leaking out carbohydrates into the soil. Those microbes feed on those carbohydrates, but they also do something really important, and they absorb some of the diseases in the soil so that the roots themselves don't absorb those diseases. So these microbes act as the immune system of the vine itself. So if you have sterile soil, microbes can exist in that environment. But if you have a very diverse soil type that is not sterile, it has natural fertilizers, then meaning manure, then those microbes can exist and act as the immune system of the root. Now, say you have sterile soil, the vine will continue to absorb those diseases, and you're going to continually have to spray all for the diseases, for herbicides, pesticides, and you're going to have to constantly spray fertilizers as well, because the soil is sterile. The soil is sterile, doesn't have anything naturally that's helping the vine grow. So it's kind of this downward cycle where the more you spray, the more you have to spray. Versus if you just keep the soil natural, the vine can be healthy in and of itself. So it's got a strong immune system, so it doesn't need to take medicine all the time. So that's why it's really important to be careful what we're putting into our soil, and that's what biodynamics is all about. But it's more than that. So biodynamics was basically invented by Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian philosopher and scientist, who thought that not only do we exist in this ecosystem of where we are right here in winemaking world, the vineyard, but also the entire planet exists within the ecosystem of the cosmos. So that is our relationship to the moon and the stars and the sun and all of the other planets that are around. And so if you follow your astrology, then this goes into that. We are affected by the cycles of the moon and our relationship to the rest of the planets and our location within them. So that is biodynamics. And so they have 4 days, I should say. So they have a root day, a leaf day, and a flower day, and a root day. So depending on all these days, they might decide that, well, on the root day, the seeds themselves are more it's more likely for these seeds to germinate. So I'm only going to plant on a root day. And that root day is determined by the relationship of the earth and where it's in relationship to the planets and the moon. And a leaf day or a flower day, more possible to grow. You might be pruning on a leaf day where you wouldn't prune on a different day, because it's more likely that prune will not cause an infection based on the day that it is. So if you're interested on learning more about this, there is an app that you can download called When Wine. And this will tell you when to drink wine, because it says that we're only supposed to drink wine, or that, not so. It says that wine just tastes better generally when you drink wines on flower days or fruit days. Root days and leaf days make your wine not taste as optimal as if you drank the same wine on a flower day or a fruit day. Now that's if you're drinking biodynamic wines. So if you're interested in that, try the same bottle of wine multiple times across different days. See if it makes a difference to you. And that is definitely a little bit more subjective, I should say. So does it matter? And here's why I think it does. So biodynamic practicing, whether you're certified through Demeter, very expensive certification, that's globally recognized, or just biodynamically practicing, meaning I'm doing everything, I'm just not paying for the certification, is key to highlighting terroir. So terroir is that French word that means the sense of place. So the sense of place for a vine includes not just the soil itself, but the slope of the vineyards and how much rainfall you're getting, average sunlight, the slant as if you're facing towards the sun or away from the sun, drainage levels, wind, what other plants are growing around you, whether it's a lavender field or an evergreen forest. So all of this goes into terroir. Wines should be either terroir focused Or then you have basically formulaic wines, where they're not really trying to express terroir, they're trying to produce a product that tastes really stable across every vintage, every batch they make. You always know what you're getting. So it's very formulaic. So not natural, because they're using a formula and additives to make a wine taste a certain way. So those are the two kind of drastic camps of wine: terroir-driven wines and formulaic wines. So terroir-driven wines are trying to express not just the grape Pinot Noir, let's say, that I have in my glass right here, but they're trying to express what Pinot Noir tastes like in this area of either Burgundy, France, or Patagonia, Argentina, or Russian River Valley, California. They all taste different based on terroir, not just winemaking practices, that does factor in, but terroir as well. So in order to really express that terroir, the vines themselves need an intimate connection with the soil, and you can't have that if you have sterile soil. So some people call biodynamic wine practicing the royal road to terroir-driven wines. So it's the best way to express terroir through your wines. Now, are all biodynamic wines delicious? Not necessarily, just like all organic wine is not delicious, or all natural wine is not delicious. But I think across the board, what I have found in tasting a lot of biodynamic wines, including one of my favorites, Balta. They're in Penedès, Spain. They produce a ton of different wines: sparkling, still, white, red, rosé, everything in between. They've been biodynamically practicing since about 2012, 2011. And huge estate, making a big difference in terms of how that area of Spain thinks about biodynamics in wine. So what I have found is with winemakers like this, where they think that it is worth the extreme effort that goes into producing biodynamic wines, both viticultural practices and vinicultural practices, no one's gonna make that much effort and not make the same effort into producing delicious wines. So obviously, it's not really worth buying biodynamic wines if they're not delicious. But in my case, what I have found is that the integrity of the wine shows through the wine, and the integrity of the soil, the integrity of the vine, the grapes, everything is showing in the wines themselves when they're biodynamic. And they have this interesting factor, this intrigue factor. They taste unique. They taste different than any other wine. So this Indígena Grenache tastes different than any other Grenache that I've had from that area of Spain, because they're truly expressing the soil. Not always delicious, but certain producers are really nailing it, and they're doing an amazing job. So check it out. Look for any wines that are biodynamic, either certified through Demeter or just biodynamically practicing, and see for yourself. Look up more information on biodynamics online. There's tons of stuff out there, but mostly taste and see for yourself, because again, it doesn't matter if the wine's not good. And but what I have found is that most of the biodynamic wines that I have tasted and seen are truly exceptional, beautiful, and unique. So I look forward to seeing you next time and talking about more things. Leave a note in the comments below if you'd like to see any specific videos explaining anything about wine, wine reviews, service industry, restaurant practices, how to order, how to buy, anything that you're interested in learning more about. Just leave that note in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe so that you get notified anytime I upload a new video. Until next time, I hope you are drinking some delicious biodynamic wines, and I'll see you then. Cheers.